Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Eric.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Episode 200.
We made it.
Do you have any idea what that means? Because I don't.
Yeah, I feel like...
I'm not sure what the difference is between episodes 199 and 200 and 201 are.
It is a milestone.
Okay, so I've been doing a lot of thinking about what it possibly could be. And I'm being honest when I say I don't know what the difference is, because we put a lot of effort into any episode that we put out there. We want it to be the best one. I certainly, the episodes are now better than they were when we first started, but I think that if there's anything that 200 means, it's like longevity, it's consistency, it's the fact that we never gave up. And I think that's a message that does ring true for about, 90-something% of these episodes, which is that you talk to a person about ups and downs and highs and lows and gutter balls and strikes, and in the end, they've made it. They've made it to this point, and they've made it to creating something that is celebrated. And if people are willing to celebrate this episode, to celebrate us, to celebrate the fact that we have gone 200 episodes, not skipped a week, sometimes given you 12 episodes in 12 days, sometimes gone
more.
Yeah, it's just crazy with them. Then that is to be celebrated, and I think that that's really cool. So, episode 200, what has this podcast done that you never expected to do?
I mean, it got us to London. That's a pretty big deal.
That was dope.
But I think that what it's done is it allows us to have real conversations with people that we never thought we'd have conversations with.
Mm-hmm.
We spend weeks at the Lox' studio, and we watch movies with them.
It's crazy.
Like, we watched Coco with the Lox.
This is true.
That might be the most surprising thing that's happened from all of this. Yes, it has allowed us to travel.
Mm-hmm.
It's allowed us to make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
It's allowed us to have, Ty Dolla $ign use our bathroom.
This is true.
But, Coco, we watched that with the Lox.
Yeah. And by the way, perfect segue.
Yeah.
October 3rd, anybody in, around, or coming to New York City, we expect you to be at Highline Ballroom. 2 Jews and 2 black dudes review the movies live. It's our first show with the Lox on stage, watching a movie with you guys. We're going to be watching a movie. We're going to be commentating during the movie. And it's going to be hilarious and well worth your time, well worth your evening, well worth your money. Tickets are available right now at ItsTheReal.com. I think for us, what's really special is that it's created not just fantastic conversation, but meaningful connections with a lot of these artists. The fact that we can go to California and sit down with Wiz Khalifa and him welcome us in like old friends and have real conversation with him is awesome. The same thing that we can do with Mano. The same thing we can do with Mike Posner, who, until we saw him at his hotel room, we hadn't seen for a long time. Same thing that we do with Marcia St. Hubert or Shari Bryant or any of the Rockefeller guys. I think, when we ran into Jim Jones at Rock Nation one day, he was over the moon about what his interview meant in terms of what he said, what we reminded him of, and what he wanted to do in the future. He was like, let's do another one on the streets of Harlem.
Which is crazy, because we thought that he didn't like the interview.
But you know what? You never know.
He was eating an apple during the interview.
But maybe the most special thing to come out of this podcast, to be completely honest, is you guys. Is the fact that you come back week after week, that you jump in our Instagram lives, that you see us in person, that you stop us on the streets, that you've stopped actual trains and told us, that you've stopped us at the airport going through TSA, that you have yelled out of cars, that you have shaken our hands, asked for our autographs, sent us emails, bought tickets to our shows, supported by buying merch, that you have cared, that you have welcomed us into your regular activities and literally into your headphones on a weekly basis. That is the most meaningful thing, and that you guys still want more from us and still get excited every time a new episode pops up on your phone. That's pretty damn special.
You forgot about the guy who baked me cookies.
Oh, well, that you know what? Shout out to that guy for not poisoning you, because that's a great opportunity for you to trust a stranger to send pastries into your apartment and eat them and not die.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted cookies that badly.
This is true.
That I didn't even question what was in them.
I saw that Scotty Beam wrote the other day that she had established a P.O. box for people to send her gifts. We have not done that.
No. But if you want to send us gifts, send them to Scotty Beam, and then hopefully she'll forward them to us.
So, but anyway, 200 episodes. Is there anything that really stands out to you, Jeff, besides the Rockefeller thing? I think people ask us about our favorite episode of all time. And I mean, that has to be, right?
It's in a different class for me.
Right.
No, like really, like that doesn't even feel like that just feels like this crazy thing that happened.
And it was. And it did.
I think for me, I mean, Swizz Beatz showing up on like a Saturday night out of nowhere, that was crazy. And then going to the studio afterwards with him, all of that was nuts.
I like taking bets on the younger artists and seeing them pay off. The Lil Uzis, the Cardi B's. And I love the veterans, too. And when DJ K-Slay came up in here and spent forever talking about his unbelievable career from, the very origins of hip-hop until now, that was pretty special.
DJ Premier locking our door because we never do.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Ty Dolla $ign using our bathroom and calling it a piss cup.
That was exceptional.
Migos bringing over like 20 people.
And you know what? Having our friends come up here, Greg and Shin and Marsha and Kaz and Lo and Diani and Waz and Nod and everybody who took time to just support when this isn't a paid gig. It's barely a paid gig for us. That this is something that people are just like, you guys do something different. We love it and we want to support it is really dope.
Oh, also, most underrated thing that we ever did.
Yeah.
Was because we've had like all these huge names up here.
Yes.
We had a guy from the Midwest who had never been to New York ever.
Right.
And he came in for Charles Hamilton's show in 2015 or 16. And the Charles Hamilton concert got canceled.
Right.
And so he was like, well, the least I can do is, reach out to ItsTheReal and see if I could at least meet them.
Yeah, and just say hi.
And then we had him on the podcast.
We did, yeah. Listen, I mean, the guy bought plane tickets. He flew on a plane for the first time.
Yeah.
You have to talk about that on the podcast.
Shout out to Giancarlo Chin, who is the least
likely person to show up on our podcast.
Yeah.
He showed up.
We had him on.
What a time.
He lived a lot of people's dreams. Yeah. That's also crazy.
Yeah.
That people... Because we never thought that we would be journalists.
We're not.
No, but we sort of are considered that, which is like crazy.
I think it's... for real journalists, I feel bad when people say that we are journalists. I would say this, and I think we can agree on this. We formed some sort of platform that people think is important, and that is wild.
Yeah. But
this
like
Joe Fresh Goods episode, when... Everyone from Chicago hit us up and they were like, you guys, with your huge platform, took a chance on somebody from our city matters. And we're like...
Okay, listen to the Rocky Fresh episode or listen to the Andrew Barber.
Dreezy or anybody else from Chicago who's been on the podcast.
Yeah. No, like, it's funny. Like, when Mouse Jones talks about how we're like the Letterman for him.
Crazy. And then
other people repeat that afterwards. Like, that's bizarre to me.
This whole thing is crazy that we've made it 200 episodes. This is close to the longest thing that we've ever done at one time. And, there's no reason really to stop it. And we enjoy that you guys get such a kick out of it. And we have some really amazing guests on the way. And I think... through this whole process, you guys have a pretty good idea of who we are through episodes that we've done by ourselves. I think through the conversations that we've had with everybody talking about high school and talking about college and talking about work and just talking about growing up. But we wanted to do something with this episode 200, where we really do talk about ourselves. And it's much more fun when there's someone else here asking the questions. And... it meant a lot to us that Naomi Zeichner, who's been on the podcast, who's been a part of our lives for the last 7 or 8 years, agreed to come up here. She's the former editor-in-chief of The Fader and is now at YouTube and is a real journalist, an excellent journalist, and it's really important to us that we had someone who would sit down and talk to us with care, and that it's done on our platform that people think is significant in itself. So I really enjoyed this episode. I was glad we got to talk about a whole range of things. I think you guys will get a great idea of who we are as people, as a brand, and as podcasters. And it's our pleasure now to present you with episode 200. But before we do, Jeff, do you have any episodes that you want to recommend?
Yes, I have 200 episodes that I'd like to recommend.
Oh, good.
Starting with this one.
Yes.
But also I'd say the Killer Mike episode.
That was a really good one.
I don't know what number that is.
Me neither, but that was the one where we flew down right ahead of our album release and had Killer Mike interview us about our lives and us as artists. And it was amazing for him to let us into his house. Shout out to him, shout out to Shay, and shout out to that conversation.
I'm going to say number 134, JID.
That was a great episode as well. Somebody who, again, a new kid that we wanted to take a chance on. We asked Interscope if we could get him, and he made his way up here and talked about everything from playing football to signing with Dreamville. And we're excited about his path, excited about his music, and excited about him as a person.
Well, yeah, I'm recommending it because his story is so similar to ours.
That's right.
Number 133, Maul of the Joe Budden podcast.
Shout out to Maul. Maul, who, we loved the Joe Budden podcast when they had Marissa Mendez on there, and we made a cameo over there one time when Joe called out because he was working in LA, I think. But ever since they made that switch and brought Maul in as a permanent member of that crew, they have been on one hell of a run. Their live shows, their videos, their cartoons, their dramatic readings, their sound effects with the flex.
The soundboard.
Oh, the soundboard, but the flex, the gunshots, the
Mendices thing is the best, though. Oh my God,
it's so good. And also, the fact that they have become the place to go anytime a big album drops or a big diss song drops or something happens in the news, you have to go and hear what Joe and Rory and Maul have to say is a testament to not only them and their platform, but to the conversations that they have. I do want to mention one more time, 2 Jews and 2 Black Dudes review the movies live at Highline Ballroom here in New York City, October 3rd. Tickets are available at ItsTheReal.com. We have merch available at ItsTheReal.com. We have tour dates on ItsTheReal.com. We have podcasts and other stuff at ItsTheReal.com. So go there right now. Jeff, when do you want to get into this episode?
Right now.
Hey, guys.
Is that to us?
Yeah. I'm Naomi Zeichner, and we're here again. We're just back at your kitchen table on the Upper West Side. The only time I ever come to the Upper West Side is for you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I love it here.
Well, honestly, thank you for doing this. First of all.
I'm so excited.
No, we're excited.
I feel a little nervous.
In what sense?
Because this is just the first time you guys have ever done this.
Yeah.
Want to make sure it's good.
I hope so.
Want to do you proud.
No. I sort of hope it's so bad that it goes viral.
Oh man, okay, yeah, that's a whole nother level of intimidation. How can we do that? So the first time I ever met you guys was you were on a live talk show at I wish maybe on the East Side at some comedy place, and the host was this guy Scott Rogalski.
Yeah.
Who some people may now know is the host of HQ. HQ still exists. Yeah?
It does.
It sure does. Yeah. You can win $1.
Yeah. So Scott Rogalski got suddenly famous, and sort of deservedly so, in my opinion. I always thought he was Scott Rogalski. Well, anyway, we'll talk about Scott later.
Yeah.
But he was also at the time my boyfriend's roommate. So I was at supporting my boyfriend's roommate at his strange comedy show that was supposed to be a talk show, and you guys were on, and my immediate reaction was sort of who the fuck are these Westchester guys who think they know about rap and think they're funny? Who told them that was okay?
Yeah.
So and I think you guys went to high school, right, with Scott?
I went to nursery school with him.
I see.
And then he went to private school, I think.
Yeah, I've never gone to to school with Jeff since elementary school. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's 3.5 years age difference, but 4 years in grades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're old?
I am older. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I want to just start with though, like, you know, I was sort of like, who the hell are these kids from Westchester or whatever? Like, where are you from?
Yeah. No, we're from Harrison. Where Scott's also from, and we had a Rye mailing address. Rye is like the very wealthy neighbor. We were from the blue collar Harrison, right? Like our mom was a magazine editor in the city for Family Circle, for Good Housekeeping. Yeah. And then I ended her career by being born. She left to have me, and then came back to find that her desk was filled, which was, you know, a sort of thing of the time, right? Not that it's cool. I'm just saying, like, that was a reality. And our dad he was a company man.
He worked at IBM. He worked at Citibank.
Yeah.
He's one of the architects for online banking.
Yeah. And so we grew up in a nice creative household. Our parents would let us, you know, I wanted to paint the basement in like baseball logos, like giant Major League Baseball logos. And they were like, as long as you paint it white, and then you could do whatever you want. And those logos stayed throughout like the whole time that they owned that house. But a very creative household.
Well, I mean, you should be said that you made it to Sports Illustrated for Kids
I
from there.
I did.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. Scott Rogowski would appreciate that.
Yeah.
But
he never made it to
But no, it was a nice, loving household. It was me and then my brothers, Dan and Jeff, who are twins. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your dynamic like as kids? Like, were you very close, the two of you, or were you and Dan, who's your twin, right, super, super close and never talked to Eric?
Yeah, we never. when I met Eric, he was 12. I think the three of us were very close. I think that Dan and I obviously, you know, shared a lot of friends, but then at a certain point, my friends and Dan's friends all became Eric's friends, to a very like real degree, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. We all, you know, we went to day camp together. We never went to sleepaway camp. We would take family trips. We would drive down to see our cousins in Washington, D.C. That was a sort of easy trip. We would drive down the East Coast to go see our mom's parents down in Florida. So that was like a longer trip. But we would also take trips to the Deep South. We would go to all these like Civil War sites. Yeah. We traveled a lot. We were very close, you know, and we were very good. We were good kids, you know. We didn't cause too much trouble. The biggest thing that our parents like disliked probably was for a time our taste in music, you know, or like how loud we would play our music. But really it was something where we went to camp and made videos together. We played sports in the street together. We would bike into town together.
I just want to correct one thing. I think that there were definitely things that our parents did not like more than the music. Maybe like, you know, when I keyed somebody's car with a rock, or when there were other stole things.
If you had to sort of identify maybe like some values of the family or things that the family was like, or, you know, what would the family down the street say about you guys? You know, like,
I think that
you were free to key cars. Family.
I don't know if I was free to. There was definitely a response to that. Like families down the street probably were just like, oh yeah, like those kids are just like good kids.
We had a good creative dynamic when we wanted to, you know, write. We created a newspaper that we would write, the three of us, and edit ourselves, like,
which was called the Rosenthal Reporters.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what we were reporting on, but it would go to our grandparents, I guess. We would take pictures. This was our idea of fun. We asked our parents to move the cars outside of the garage, and we would close the garage door, and we would blast Hot 97, and we would rollerblade in a circle.
Like, man, that's sick.
But for hours, just listening to, you know, Ladies Night, not the song Ladies Night, but like Angie Martinez,
right? Jazzy Joyce,
and like everyone who on Friday nights as kids we would rollerblade around in circles, listening to Hot 97, and you know
we weren't even doing drugs.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a similar experience, right? Like, clearly had this appetite to make content from a very young age.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, well, like, why? Like, where did I get that from?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, obviously, like, social media didn't exist, blogging didn't exist, but the internet did. I don't, you know, I think we're close to the same age, right? There was sort of this promise of computers that was very exciting. Like, why do you think that you had this inclination and desire to sort of make content?
Well, Yeah.
And like, when were you really psyched about the internet when you got it? Did you have email at your house?
So when we would take those long trips, our mom would stay up very late in the bathroom with these empty books, and she would create these travel books, games for us to play, things for us to spot.
Like time wasters.
But also like ways for us to remember what was going on. You know, what exactly you liked about the national parks, what exactly you liked about Conan or Letterman that you watched the night before. But she would stay up so we could all sleep and give us these opportunities to be creative, draw this, write about this, think of
what
things.
were your favorite restaurants? You know, like, did you meet anybody? Did you talk to anybody? Like that sort of thing where it was just like these creative outlets that you would have.
Yeah.
And so like these are very formative years, but also very formative products of those years.
Our parents gave us the opportunity to be creative. I think the three of us being so close spurred something on with us. And also working at that day camp where we were able to make these videos that were like half-hour movies that we could act and direct in, and decide to recreate a Beastie Boys video or recreate...
Yeah, like imagine like 40 middle school kids in like 1997 redoing the Beat It dance.
Yeah.
Like all, like it's crazy.
Yeah. And then our best friend, Greg Mayo, whose father was a very accomplished touring and studio musician, Bob Mayo, played with Frampton on Frampton Comes Alive, played with Hall & Oates, played with Foreigner and Aerosmith and all these great bands. Greg was just a musical genius, and we would go over to his house where he had a studio in the basement, and we would just make mixtapes. We would rap. You know, we would come up with skits in the middle. We would come up with themes and have our friends host this, and it was all about inside jokes that, you know, we all had and thought was hilarious, and then we would burn the CDs, and then we would hand them out, you know, before camp started, and that was just our life. We called ourselves the Purchase Street Sweepers. You know, we loved DJ K-Slay so much. We wanted to just have our own thing that was honest and true to us.
So obviously, you know, like rap music is just pop music, right? It was the music that existed in the air. Like, why else would you have liked anything else? It's very natural. But do you remember maybe like a rap song, or just like what were some of that music that like really hit you personally, or like when you think about kind of...
Yeah, I think I know Dan very, very, very early on bought Boom Shake the Room by Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. But at that time, I remember I just wanted to buy anything. It didn't matter what it was. And so I remember I came out of there with like a Garth Brooks cassette. But much later, when I was in like fourth grade, fifth grade, I remember, you know, Montel Jordan was huge for me. I remember the Boyz II Men 2 album being very big. Mm-hmm. And by that time, you were already listening to like Snoop and, you know, everything else. So
yeah. Domino was very big for me in that, and Snoop. Domino, I had the cassette single for Sweet Potato Pie, which my mom took away and, you know, hid. I loved Snoop. I loved Dre. I loved Biggie too. Like, I loved East Coast stuff, but like the West Coast just spoke to me. I don't know why. The G-Funk, you know, we grew up on Motown stuff. You know, our parents would play a lot of that, Beatles, of course, but a lot of Motown. And I don't know what the G-Funk spoke to me about, but it just did. And it really, I don't know, kept.
Well, you were also like smacking bitches and...
Yes, yeah, completely.
Yeah. So. I remember calling MTV Jams like every single day to get them to play Skilo's I Wish. And I would always get like I Dallas, like the there was like a recording of I Dallas being like, "Thanks for calling MTV Jams," or like Bill Bellamy just being like, "You're not getting through."
And by the way, like, that's not to say, so I listened to rap, I loved rap. A lot of my friends didn't.
Same.
But I also got, you know, Green Day, and I also got Dave Matthews Band.
Dave?
And, Dave. I went to go see Dave my prom weekend. Like, you know, it was a regular thing.
I never got into Dave.
I think about, you know, I also had that same expansive CD book, right? And I think that I wonder sometimes, like, when the road narrowed for me, like, when did sort of the world of the expansive world of rap music become the world that I was pretty much solely interested in, and or even also when did music become so much the root of my life? I guess when for you do you think that happened, or when did you sort of look back and say, oh, like this is really where I'm grounded?
I think that for me, I guess like when I got the internet. No, I mean before that. No, I was very excited when we got MTV. Like that was like a huge deal to me.
Yeah, we didn't grow up with cable.
Yeah,
it was
for you. It was like ninth grade.
It was
so that's
real,
a really long time.
like real treat when we were on the road to stop somewhere where like HBO and ESPN and MTV. You know, we would go up to our grandparents' place. They had a winter home in Vermont, and our father's parents, and we would go up there, and they had MTV, and you know, to watch anything on there was just like the biggest treat. But yeah, when we got cable, that was a big game changer. But also, when the internet came, we downloaded
everything.
like mixtapes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I went through like Napster, Aries, Nutella, like every single service there was, I had it.
LimeWire,
Soulseek,
yeah, all that, and that was big when I went off to college. You know, having a LAN line was crazy, you know, and that was just such a game changer in terms of like, we need to get every piece of Kanye material that there is, you know, like have to. Mm-hmm. And it was a game, you know, all between all of us to sort of like who would find this or who would find that. And eventually you would get the ones where it was like mislabeled and,
you know, downloading like Eminem
featuring Jay-Z and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and, you know, Domino and whoever. But it was never that. But
when you went to college, obviously right at different times, and you went in different cities, like what did you know, I think in American families, but I would say also in Jewish families, maybe specifically, like my college was a very important thing. I really was expected to know like what postdoctorate degree I was going to get. And I think my parents were very concerned. I remember being like, what, you don't know what your plan is. And so like, what, you know, when you went to college, what was the game plan? What did you think the purpose was going to be?
I was the worst. Like, so you grow up in this creative family and you're given all these opportunities to explore that. And I didn't change. I went to school and I was just like, I'm going to be a creative. I'm going to be a feature film writer and director. And I'm not going to go to grad school to do it. I'm going to do it now. I've always had this thing, and I have these reoccurring dreams where I'm missing my flight, or I'm missing a train, or I'm late to something. And I just always feel like I have to do this now, right? I can't wait. I have to be ahead of my competition. And I didn't want to go to grad school and get my doctorate or figure out something in film then. I wanted to go to film school right away. And I went to Syracuse. I didn't get into the Newhouse School of Communications, which is like where everyone, you know, all the producers and you think you get that degree and that's, you know, going to set your life straight. And no, so I transferred from arts and sciences, which my parents are like, yeah, like get a wide sort of breadth and figure out where you'll go and use this time to sort of explore. No, I was so sad. I was treating this like an apprenticeship. I went into visual and performing arts. And I was a film major. A drama minor. I was so set on my career, and I shot music videos. I shot narrative things. I was so set on that, and you know, things come and go, and life is not a straight path, right?
I didn't have like a clear idea of what I wanted to do. Eric and Dan both did. I think for me, my mom had suggested American Studies because it was a broad enough thing that I could just learn about like American history and stuff. And then I didn't go to class. I just like hung out with people. Like it was my first time being alone. And it was this thing where it was just like, it's cool to just hang out with like I was the mayor of Boston. Like I knew everybody, and that was like my thing. Yeah. And then at a certain point, I saw Almost Famous, and that's what like made me want to be a writer, and that's what made me want to work in music, and that's what sort of like set me down like the right path.
I don't know what mom and dad thought by the time you were in college, but like me being in college, they were just like, "Don't you want to just you know, just see what everything's about. And then they were like, don't you want to transfer to a better school, like for film, and like go to UCLA or go to USC or something like that? And I was like, no, I'm going to ride this out here. Because Syracuse isn't like known to be
the place
for filmmaking, right? Like they make producers in Newhouse, but they don't make like auteurs. And I was like, man, and what do you know, at that age either? I thought I knew everything. I really did. I was like, I'm going to, write about high school stuff, and I'm going to be like John Hughes, and I'm going to make but by the way, like I wanted to make John Hughes movies with a Coen brothers like sort of twist. I was like Paul Thomas Anderson. I was like, I wanted to do like, Thinking Man's, films.
How much did you like Garden State though?
Oh, I loved Garden State. Yeah. That hit it like the right time. But Big Lebowski really like, changed my life and led me into this like idea of what humor really could be like, and I loved Dumb and Dumber too. I loved SNL. Humor was just a thing, but it wasn't like where I was going to be in front of the camera. Did you? I don't know.
No, I never thought I would be in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Ever. No, that's not true. I remember I performed at BU. There was like an American Idol type competition, and I rapped an original rap. And I came in second or third. I did the Harlem Shake, and the crowd like went crazy. And so like that was like the first time that I actually like performed, and maybe the only time I performed by myself.
Yeah.
I wish there was some video of that. And then, so, how did you guys kind of come together, right? You were so many years ahead while Jeff was Harlem Shaking. Yeah. You were maybe already finished with school.
Yeah.
And what also was like, what was that moment like where you realized maybe that you were not going to be a film director?
Yeah.
How soon did that moment come?
Well, so it came in phases. I interned for a music video and commercial and documentary company here in the city my sophomore year, and I worked on Kobe Bryant's music video. I met Tyra Banks. I was like over the moon. It was great. But I worked on a Slipknot video. I worked on a Backstreet Boys video. But I also worked on this documentary. What was the name of it?
Capturing the Freedmans.
Capturing the Freedmans, which won at Sundance. I had a very, very small, like, very, very off-screen, behind-the-scenes role.
Right, you weren't one of the Freedmans.
I was not. Yeah. But it was cool to be a part of that. I had an IMDb thing, right? And so I'm learning, and I wanted to study, at the elbow of one of the greats. And I wanted to get on any feature film that I could, and I used any way that I could, cold emailing, cold calling, using like relatives who may have known someone. And then there was a film strike and a union, strike, and I didn't want to cross any lines. I didn't want to be a part of anything. And also production had been shut down. So I was screwed the following summer. I took a photography class here in the city and was kind of stubborn about everything. And I went back to school and I took this class with this professor named Richard Dubin, who ended up being really important to me in that he taught at Newhouse, the school that I couldn't get into. And so I decided to do an independent study. Well, I guess first I fought really hard to get into his class. It was a film business class. And I'm the only, visual performing arts guy in this class full of would-be producers. And we had this project, which was you had to research how a film was made. And I was put into this crew that decided to pick Fast and Furious, a film that I wasn't into or didn't have any interest in. And what does anyone do at that age in college? You don't do much research or anything. So you go on the internet and you find whatever information you can and you bring it back. I had to do like pre-production, and you're supposed to bring in an actual budget. And, everyone got yelled at, and Professor Dubin was like, listen, actually reach out to people. They will pick up your phone calls. They're humans. And I did. I placed a phone call to a guy named Neil Moritz, who was the executive producer of Fast and Furious and went on to produce a million huge films, blockbusters. And I left him a message. I don't know. I found his number online. I left him a message, and he called our landline at our house in college. And I got the call, and he said, I love what you had to say. Here's every number to all of my producers, my executive producers, my associate producers, everyone, and they'll get you what you need. And I walked in the next class with an actual budget, an actual thick budget, and just plopped it on the table. And I was like, I want to go first. And it set me apart. And I was like, oh, I can just talk to people. I can just knock down doors and I can get in, and I don't need to go through gatekeepers anymore. And that was super important to me. It didn't help me get a job. I graduated school. I wrote these scripts. I met with amazing people, Barry Diller, the Godfather producers, Neil Moritz. Again, I wasn't selling anything because I came from this place where I didn't have any life experience. I didn't love, I didn't lose, I didn't like travel. I didn't do any of that. I was just like this kid from a nice environment growing up who, went to a good college, who had good friends, didn't really get in trouble, did some stupid things, but nothing that, got me arrested or took me anywhere. Went back home, wrote these scripts, and walked them into rooms and couldn't sell them. And they shouldn't have sold. I was like, all right, I'm going to do an animated movie now. And I wrote the script about these animals from the Bronx Zoo who escape and go back to their homeland, right? And I pitched that to Fox Animation, and they were like, this won't work because we're focused on doing like one type of animal. Like we need a dog movie or we need like a cat movie. And I was like, but I have penguins and monkeys and giraffes and all this stuff. And they were like, it'll never work. And then Madagascar comes out, and I was like, damn. And I was like, also like, well, you know what though? That's not going to be my last great idea. And it wasn't like they stole it from me. It was just like, if that idea is out in the ether, like anyone could come up with that, and I shouldn't be sad about that. And I learned that I would rather be a big fish in a small pond than try to fight all these kids who were just like me. Like, oh, we're all going to be feature filmmakers. We're all going to make these same movies. I was like, let me rock with a more interesting situation, something that was closer to my heart. And that's where hip hop and filmmaking came together, because I got to know Kanye West, who had a company called Hustle Film out of Chicago, and they were looking to make documentaries and feature films.
How did you guys connect on the phone? What kind of phone was it? Like, what year are we talking? And it's so funny also, like, especially, this year and kind of all of the conversations we've all been having about Kanye. Yeah. I sort of said to someone that in some ways it's like an existential crisis for me, because I really feel like my career has just been to be a Kanye-ologist, right? Like he is a connective tissue, like for anyone, I think, who's interested in this culture and the people that surround it. And so in some ways I'm like, well, where do we all go from here? Where is Kanye going? Yeah. Where am I going? But yeah, like how did you get swept up into that?
Like I said, so Jeff's and my relationship, especially when he was in college, there would be a lot of connections that we would have however many hours away. We would call each other after we would watch The Office on NBC, and we would recap it, and we would have these conversations and be like, and go over lines, and just because it was fun to discuss, But we had the same thing with Kanye's music. It was like, downloading all these things,
right?
And
did you get the Clinton
files.
Sparks, mixtape? Did you get the DJ White Owl mixtape or whatever?
It was wild. We would have these conversations, and we loved Kanye. Kanye was so different. We loved Rockefeller. We loved Jay-Z, and that Kanye was any part of that. Look, I remember Jeff downloaded the Freeway album and burned it on CD, and then we shared that, and that was like everything to us. It was like, are we gonna like this guy with the weird voice? And then we did. We loved it. The Scarface Fix album or anything properly.
Yeah, but we would also just go over like, what's your favorite DJ drop?
Right.
Recite every single one. But as for like why you...
But Kanye was so important, right? Like Kanye was so different, and it spoke... It was like, man, random songs, like when he did one with like Old Dirty Bastard, that was like a gem. So anything that we could sort of be a part of, we were into. I would go to the record stores, Sam Goody or Coconuts or whatever, and I would buy Scratch Magazine, right? And I remember seeing a big piece on Kanye and Just Blaze, and then I saw something about John Monopoly, and so in like XXL, and I would learn about all these guys, and there was something special, and it felt new, it felt young, and it spoke to me. It spoke completely to me. Again, my experience was nothing like Kanye's, but it was it felt like mine. And I was like, I want to work with these guys. And I had that same relationship with Dan where we would, talk and relate music-wise and all that. And so when Dan came home
for spring break
with a friend,
right.
We were like, we're gonna go see Kanye live in Asbury Park, New Jersey. We're gonna drive down there, and we're gonna make this happen. And we saw Kanye and Little Brother and Don C was DJ Offbeat.
John Stevens.
John Legend was playing keyboards.
Wow.
And it was just like this small auditorium. And it was like, but this guy is amazing. And it just feels great. It wasn't like he's going to be a superstar. It wasn't like we're going to have any relationship. But because I had this mentality of like, nothing's beyond me and I'm going to make this happen. We waited outside and I met Consequence. And he came over and I was like, I need to meet John Monopoly. And he's like, well, he's not here, but Don C is. And I was like, I got to meet Don C. And he was like, if you buy 2 of my mixtapes right now, I'll let you. And so I bought 2 of them and he was like, I'll sign them. And I was like, thanks very much. And he ran off and he got Don C. And Don C was the nicest person ever, came over. And I gave him my elevator pitch. I'm the greatest, young filmmaker and I need to be a part of this. And I love what you guys are doing. Whatever I said, it took, and he was like, here's John's email, hit him, tell him I sent you. And that started my relationship with those guys. And, soon thereafter, John Monopoly he would leave his jobs. He worked at Violator for a minute. He worked for Epic, I think. And he would like leave jobs and no forwarding address. And I would just have to chase down and figure out. And one time I knew he was in the city. I forget how. And I got his number, I guess his new cell phone number, and I hit him, and he's like, I'm at the W Hotel, and I was like, cool. And then I'm like, oh my God, there's a million W Hotels in the city. And I chose the right one. I ended up at the right W Hotel, and who was in the lobby but Consequence? And I was like, oh my God, thank God.
My guy.
You're here. Yeah. You signed there's no reason to remember me, but whatever. And he was like, oh, cool. And he was like, we're in suite, whatever. And I went up there, and A-Track was there, and I thought his name was 8-Track, right? And I met GLC, and I gave them a script. There was one time, by the way, when Bill Murray was shooting a film in my parents' neighborhood. I was still living in my parents' place, like however old I was, like 23, 24, something like that. And
we walked over there
to hand a script to Bill Murray. Like, I was just like out of my mind, right? Just like by any means necessary. But, meeting these guys, less than a year later, they were like, would you want to come to the Grammys? This is Kanye's first Grammys, and be his videographer, document the whole team, the whole time, be with them 24/7. And it changed my life.
Where'd that footage go?
I own that footage, and Al Branch has that footage, and they were going to use that for what was called a dual disc at the time for late registration. And I walked the footage to them. I mean, I have my copies on all these like mini DV tapes, but Al Branch has all the others, and Kanye. I mean, they paid me, and
They're in the Kanye vault.
They are.
You went to like they honored him and his mother.
I was with his parents. I got to know all of them. Like, I had these weird coincidences. The girl he was dating at the time and I were in classes together at Syracuse.
Alexis? Was
no, it wasn't Alexis. It was Brooke Crittenton, okay. who worked at who worked at MTV. But it was weird. We were together in the record plant in LA. It was a very strange night. Like, I ended up in a studio with just Kanye, 88 Keys, and Nick Cannon, as 88 and Kanye ghost wrote part of Nick Cannon's song about how his mother almost aborted him. It was a very interesting evening. But anyway, I got to know Brooke, and we were talking about Dinosaur Barbecue, and she's like, what do you know about Dinosaur Barbecue? And I'm like, I went to Syracuse. What do you know about it? And all of a sudden, she was like, I was in this class with Professor Dubin. I was like, I was in that class with Professor Dubin. And I knew his security guard, Barry. He also went to Syracuse. There was a lot of, like, connections. I met all these amazing people. And all of a sudden, they got me this hotel room out there. They got me a car. I was on my own, but I was working, and I went to everything with them. And they treated me like family. And my family at home was like, we like this. After years of not knowing what I was doing with my life. Like, I came home, you know, when I was writing those scripts, I was
had no idea what you were doing.
No, both of them. There were screaming matches between me and Mom and Dad, and Dan and Jeff are off at college doing their thing, and they just don't know what to do with their kid who's getting up in the morning, running 2.5 miles to the beach, sitting down and physically writing on loose leaf paper, and when I got hungry, stuffing that back into my pockets and running 2.5 miles home for a whole summer. They were like, "You're out of your mind. What do we pay for school for? What are you doing? Get a temp job." And I did. I took shitty, stupid temp jobs, which I hated. And when this came along, you know, Mom was like, "I love this guy, Kanye West." And maybe part of that's like, hey, he's employing my son. But she's like, you know, she heard Jesus Walks, and she was like, "Oh my, this is unlike anything else you'd been playing in the backseat of the car or in the garage while you're rollerblading around or blasting out of your car when you roll up back from college. You know, this isn't Shine. You know, this is someone who like means more." And they were so supportive of that. And, you know, for whatever reason, they sort of cooled their jets and were really supportive. So by the time I came back from Grammy week with the biggest artists and doing the biggest things, and I the night before I flew back, it was Grammy night. It was like 5:00 in the morning. I had just left Kanye and his whole team after the most amazing night. He won a whole bunch of Grammys, had the best party. It was insane. And my job was over, and I'm in a suit, and I have my Canon XL2 camera, and I get into this elevator, which looks, it's a glass elevator, and it looks outside onto Los Angeles, and it's, you know, the sun is just, you know, about to like come up. So you see all the lights over Los Angeles, and it's rising to whatever floor I'm on, and I'm by myself, and I put the camera bag down, and I did the only thing that made sense to me, which was throw up the rock.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I don't care. It was amazing, and it meant the world to me. And then I flew back, and all of a sudden, you know, you have that at the top of your resume, and I'm meeting with Lyor Cohen and Kevin Liles and Mona Scott, and I started doing work for all these record companies on a freelance basis.
I mean, tell the Lyor and Kevin story.
I met with Lyor. He had just taken over at Warner, and Lyor, you know, Jewish guy, music business, had obviously super success at Def Jam, was somebody that I had to meet. I, you know, never met the guy, just knew of his stature and all these stories. And I was like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to wow them, and I'm going to get a job at Warner Music Group, and I'm going to be Lyor's guy. And so I go in and I wait, and he keeps me waiting forever. And eventually I am let into this big conference room at 75 Rock, and he's sitting there, and he's like, you know, hearing me out. And then he's like, what would your schedule be like for us? I'm like, I will work whenever you need. Really? 24/7. Yep, 24/7. If I called you in the middle of the night, you'd come and you'd film whatever I need. Anything you need, I am there. He's like, what if, and he points to Kevin, who I'm meeting for the first time, and he's like, what if I asked you to film Kevin's son's bar mitzvah? And I'm like, Kevin's Jewish? And I did not get that job, but you know, it was just amazing, and all of a sudden I had all these opportunities come my way, and it was just a game changer.
So you knew it was your pond. I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
and
I did. Yeah,
it's kind of beautiful.
Thank you,
Jeff. You're such a talented writer, right?
Thank you.
And it's sort of silly to say you're not a journalist, because you've done a ton of great journalism, you know, and like actively. And I think why. Was that something you like? Did you think that you were going to become this traditional, almost famous journalist? Like, and was that the goal when you came to New York after school? And even like now, is there a reason maybe that you don't identify that way?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it's a funny thing. It's almost like the forgotten part of my like story. So I came out of school and I went on Media Bistro, which was like a job site, and I just applied for everything. And my first day, because my mom was like, you need to figure, your life out. Like, you can't just sit here all summer and just like do nothing. And so I went on and I got 2 online internships in the first day. And the first one was with this guy, Robert Moritz, who is Neil Moritz's brother.
Which is crazy.
Crazy. And Robert was like, I am a men's health writer or editor or something. And he was like, I'm doing this story where you have to figure out the quickest ways to get things done. And so he was like, I just need you to like do like administrative work like nothing. But then because I was so good at that, he allowed me to basically write a lot of this, what would be a cover story, which was, figuring out the quickest way to fall asleep or the quickest way to learn a new language or the quickest way to win a bar fight. So I was talking to some UFC fighter from Romania about how you need to like smash a bottle over somebody's head instead of just like, just a table. And then, you wouldn't stab the person, but you would disorient them by smashing over their head. And then the way that you swing a chair, like, so I learned all this stuff, and I did a good job for him, and then that got me a job at HBO, which Robert was later fired from, because he would just show up in the parking lot and just sit in the lounge chair instead of actually doing work. Anyway, so HBO, I started doing sketch comedy over there, and then the writing thing only happened for me because Maura Johnston, who was then at the Village Voice, after we had been doing videos, she said, hey, you're really funny. I bet you'd be a good writer. And she sent me to cover Summer Jam for Hot 97. And from then, I wrote like a bunch of different concert reviews. And then Rolling Stone sort of poached me, Dory Schaffer over there. And then I started doing like cover stories. I did a cover story for Vibe. I've written for Fader. I've written for XXL. I've written for everybody. A lot of places still owe me money because I'm not very good at. I was never good at asking for checks, and I always felt a little bit guilty, like this isn't my real job.
And it's kind of insane. You always have to ask for your check, like sometimes more than once. Why?
Billboard laughed at me when I was trying to fill out paperwork. They were so hostile to me. Like, I was like, hey, I need to, catch a flight, and you guys haven't given me money for the past 9 months. And so I went in, and they were laughing at me, and I hope those people got fired. Like, they're awful people.
Yikes.
That's my story.
That's why you never became a journalist. I understand.
Hey, guys, we just want to interrupt this episode 200, to tell you to go to ItsTheReal.com right now for all your It's The Real needs.
We have podcasts. We have a book on pre-sale right now. It's going to be on sale very soon, called Rhyme Book. It is on Amazon.com, but it's also on ItsTheReal.com.
Yeah, what else we got?
We have tickets to our upcoming live show with The Locks. 2 Jews and 2 black dudes review the movies. We'll be reviewing a movie.
Yes.
Live.
Yes.
2 Jews and 2 black dudes all on stage together.
Just as promised.
Yeah.
October 3rd, Highline Ballroom.
Our merch, go to ItsTheReal.com/shop.
So t-shirts, right?
Yeah.
Purple.
And black.
Yep.
And I think that's it.
Well, there's more information probably about us, and there's videos there, and
just go to ItsTheReal.com.
If you want to get in touch with us, that's where you go. ItsTheReal, no apostrophe, no spaces.
Don't take our word for it.
Yeah.
Go to ItsTheReal.com today.
And now, back to us.
I just want to sort of like reorient, sort of start a little bit at now, like this stage of your career. Like, when did you guys decide that you were going to be comedians together? And like, what is hip hop sketch comedy?
Yeah, which is a great question, because I was driving over to this girl's house when I was still living living in White Plains. Our parents had moved, and I heard this commercial for the television channel Fuse. They were going to start their version of Yo MTV Raps, and I was like, this sounds so inauthentic. And man, if I had any inclination to make TV, which I have no connection to and seemingly no understanding, I would kill it. And I parked the car, and I thought, well, why don't I? And so when HBO was winding down
for me,
for Jeff,
yeah, not as a network or as a company,
right?
Yeah,
we had sort of put these ideas together and made these pretty impressive pitches on what the real would be. Because I was like, well, what's one thing that can like tie everything together? Something that Missy Elliott is, that Kanye is, something that Young Jeezy is, that
Eve is.
Yeah, Eve is.
Yeah.
You know, all these people talk about being real. I was like, we will be the definition of real. And we had this half-hour program that had interview ideas, and it had sketch ideas, and
live performances. And so like 60 Minutes meets Angie Martinez meets like MTV Unplugged,
right.
And then also like SNL.
But like, you know, we would pitch this idea. We walked into Fuse, and we walked into XXL and Vibe and AOL and all these different places, and everyone loved the idea. But
I'm pretty sure some people are still trying to make this show right now.
This is true, but nobody saw how it could work business wise. So this is 2006, and we're pitching around these ideas, and we shot some videos to sort of show what we could do. And it's crazy to see where people have gone since then. Jeff and I were at the first show on the Run tour, and at the end of the show, on these giant, amazing video screens, they roll credits like it's a movie because why not? It's amazing. And the general manager of Parkwood is a woman that we pitched this to back in 2006. And I'm like, oh my God, I should email her and just be like, hey, look at us now and look at you now. But, you know, we had this idea, and it didn't take. And so, once again, we're not deterred by that. We're just like, all right, cool. We'll do what we can ourselves. And we can't rent out pianos, and we can't, you know, a club downtown. We can't go get talent like The Roots to back up rappers that we can't get. And we have no journalistic integrity. We can't go interview somebody and do the 60 Minutes meets Angie Martinez thing. So what can we do ourselves? We can do sketch comedy. And we had a camera, we had Final Cut Pro, and we had friends who were willing to do this, and we had these crazy ideas. So the first video we ever did was called Deconstructing Biggie, where we took the line, "You're mad because my style you're admiring, don't be mad UPS is hiring." And we went to a depot, you know, where the trucks come in and they, you know, reload things and then send them out to people's homes to deliver packages. And it was a FedEx one up in Westchester. And we said, hey, we have this great idea. We probably said we were students at like SUNY Purchase or something like that.
Yeah, like
right?
Definitely lied.
And
lied.
We were like, so we're going to do this video, and we would love to have the participation of some of your drivers just saying these lines that we've written out. And they were like, hell no. Like, leave the grounds before we call somebody. And we're like, fine, fuck you, right? And we marched our way down to AI Friedman, which is a craft store, and we got all of this material that we would cut up and style into UPS logos and FedEx logos and DHL logos. And we bought these brown shirts at this cheap shirt store, and we did our best sort of man sewing, and we made these hats and shirts and put them on our friends and had them read our lines, and all of a sudden we have a video that went viral, and we were super proud of it. And this was all us on random YouTube channels that we would create, and we were like, there's two things that are going to separate us from everyone else, and we're going to treat this like a TV show ourselves: consistency and quality. So we're going to do things that are dope, that no one else is thinking of, and it's going to be every Monday morning. No end game in sight, no idea that this was going to make money. Still living at our parents' place up in White Plains. We had temp jobs. I worked in an office. I worked at, Jeff was working at HBO, still was winding down. We shot
our second video over there.
Yeah.
So that was, we threw an early retirement party for Lloyd Banks.
Yeah.
Which 10 years later, he came up to us and he was like, I know you. I don't like you. You made fun of me. Don't make me beat you up.
Yeah. But we would make these videos with our friends, and we would, go to all the big blogs at the time, and missinfo.tv and NahRight and Two Dope Boys and All Hip Hop and SOHH, and we would monitor these, and we'd stay up late at night making these videos. Our parents didn't know what was going on, but they liked seeing the creativity. They said that they were living above the shop. That's how they referred to it. They knew that we were doing something fun. They knew we were doing something that made us happy. They didn't ask about the money. Again, I temped at the U.S. Open, right, at the Lacoste store, which was like, stupid.
But now you know the difference between if it's a crocodile or an alligator.
I do. It's a crocodile. So someone came in and asked that, and I was like, oh my God, it's a plant. It's crazy. So we would do these videos, and our parents didn't get them. A lot of our friends at home didn't get them, but a lot of our friends also did get them, the ones who would be in it, and we had the best time. And somewhere out in the world, we would see on our Blogspot page that people were getting it, and people were watching it, and people liked it, and people appreciated. You would see on the NahRight comment board, that people...
Yeah, mostly comments that were, like, pretty good.
Yeah, and also people who hated us, right? Yeah. So we called ourselves hip-hop sketch comedians because... anybody at that time, YouTube was new, and anybody at that time could make videos and call themselves a sketch comedian. And we were like, again, bigger fish, smaller pond. We'll be the only guys who are hip hop sketch comedians. And that's not to say that like we invented the art form or anything, because there's, Chappelle, and obviously like, people like Cypher Sounds have been doing things, and SNL and everything. But our brand of this sort of interesting time where hip hop and the internet really got to know each other. We were the first ones hip hop related on Tumblr.
We were the first hip hop related act on Vimeo.
Yeah, and that made a difference. And we're the same guys that you met all those years ago. We're two Jewish kids from Westchester who just thought in this different way and had something to say. We were so in tune. We so loved hip hop and love hip hop and everything that goes on around it, that people, when we did that Lloyd Banks video, I think it worked because people thought that it was The Game who had gotten these white boys to say something about Lloyd Banks, or that
Cameron.
It was Dipset.
But like, we also actively encouraged it, right?
Sure.
Like we came up with like different screen names, and we would go into like forums and be like, oh my God, look
at this video.
Yeah.
So, but that's how you had to play the game back then.
Right.
And we would do videos that we had a video where Jeff saw LL Cool. How sometimes people would see Mother Mary in their in the clouds or something like that, or you see Jesus somewhere. Well, we were like, Jeff's gonna see LL Cool J in his toast, and it burnt in the toaster, and then he would see it. Video did not do numbers, right?
Yeah, like nobody has seen this video.
It's very like great heady video, but it didn't work. But the biggest thing for us was do it again next week. And that's what we did. And we kept doing that for 3.5 years. And somewhere in there, we bought the domain name, ItsTheReal.com. There were a lot of The Reals out there. There was a band called The Real, which had TheReal.com. And we became
Great
It's The Real.
morning show called The Real.
Well, now there is.
Yeah. Shouts to our girls over there.
Yeah, Adrian and them.
I mean, when you say Lloyd Banks came up to you a couple years later and let you know that he did not enjoy that sketch, I mean, I do think there's something interesting there, right? Like, I think my approach to being a white person in rap music has always been to be extremely earnest, right? And to try to be just more thoughtful and sort of whatever. I think that was my understanding of my role. And so I think seeing you guys early on and sort of like seeing you make gun noises and laugh and like, right, like was like a little like, who the hell, like who gave them the right? Like, why is this right? And I also think that you met, like, it really was a very fascinating time on the internet, period, right? Like people like Miss Info and people like SK were like, or we're kind of redefining what the conversation around rap was, like, and more sort of random people had this weird, unprecedented power. Looking back now, or even thinking about how you were thinking about it then, how did this feel like a responsible thing to do, right? To be sort of making light of rap culture. Obviously, like, what you're doing was extremely creative. You were iterating, had all this sort of hustle that anybody who's ever had a great rap story has had. But, like, why did being funny feel like an okay thing to do?
I think that it felt like the okay thing to do because it was at a time when the pendulum had sort of swung so far in the other direction that it felt like a moment where hip-hop used to be fun. And we felt like we could bring fun back into hip-hop. We sort of came around at a time when 50 and Kanye were going at each other. And it was like this authentic street character versus, you know, a more grounded,
like a hipster.
Well, yeah, and with a lot of punchlines, and he was talking about his experiences, which were not of the street, and that was very appealing, right? And we saw that. That was September 11th, 2007. And we did a video for that where, you know, we photoshopped all of their teams into a Ken Burns documentary, and we treated it like a Ken Burns documentary for the Civil War. And, you know, our dad played a historian, and, you know, we had all these people talking about it in very, you know, grave terms, and it was just elevated. But we saw it as our job to sort of like just bring our voice in, and never to take away from what had been built before. We just wanted to build upon everyone who had. So there was an earnest side to us, but we saw the humor in these situations where, you know, Dame Dash had a problem with Irv Gotti or somebody who was like trying to get the Def Jam presidency after Jay-Z left, you know, or whether it was all these rappers, how could they possibly sit next to each other at Jay-Z and Beyonce's wedding? You know, so we did the whole seating chart, and that became a popular video. Or we did this video called Ghostwriters on Strike. We just looked at things in a different way that wasn't necessarily offensive. The Lloyd Banks thing was, right? That was sort of like a roasting, like, little shot at someone who wasn't going to sell records. But in general, I think we were doing it in a way that was respectable. And a huge thing was when we moved into the city in 2007, so a few months after we started, and we went out to lots of different events. We at that point, we were no longer guys who lived outside the culture. This was, we were going to go to every party. We were going to go to every show. We were going to be at every line. And I remember one of the first shows we went to, like Mick Boogie, it was a Nas show. We were standing outside and Mick Boogie walked up to us and he was like, "You guys really exist." And we did. And we're not going to be just a Twitter egg. We're going to be those guys who, if we say something, we'll stand by it and you can say something to our face back. And that, I think, was a huge part of why we were successful, because everyone knew us, everyone knew our heart was in the right place, and everyone respected where we were coming from.
Yeah, I think it also should be said, like, that the jokes we were making were so inside that it's like, well, obviously there's an appreciation for the culture. It's not like these two guys who are just like, man, rappers wear funny chains and like don't play their own instruments. Like, you know, I think that we didn't go for like the lowest hanging fruit usually. I mean, there were a lot of Memphis Bleaks jokes, and I'm very sorry about that.
Right.
A decade on.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, it was us trying to do something that when you love something so much, you want to be part of it, and I think this was us trying to be part of it.
And can I tell you, when we went, this was early on, we went to SOB's one night, and our friend Phil Chang had brought us over there. It was Wale.
Oh,
it was a Mark Ronson showcase.
Yep. And
he had all his
and
artists there, and the line was crazy outside at SOB's. And we were like, oh, we're not going to get in. And it was the first time we walked in there. And you know, Phil knew his Wale's manager at the time, and he got us in, and the place was packed beyond belief, and there was just like, you know, green and magenta lights and, you know, smoke, and it was packed and it was hot, and it just felt so New York and everything. And I turned to my right, and DJ Green Lantern, who is a musical hero of ours, walks up to us and goes, "Hey, what you guys are doing is important to the culture. Don't stop." And I was like, like blown away. Like I had, you know, been in rooms with Jay-Z before. I had worked with Kanye before, but this Hot 97 DJ who is so innovative came up to us, and, you know, again, we're in front of the camera now. We're producing this content for no money. We're these Jewish white kids from Westchester, and this guy who meant so much to us came and gave us that cosign. It doesn't matter that he didn't get on stage and get on the mic and tell everyone. That he told me was like mind-blowing, and then he just, you know, evaporated into the air. Yeah. And we lived off that, you know, that gave us like the energy to like keep going.
And it's happened like a bunch of times. Like Clark Kent came up to us in LA one time, and he was just like, "Hey," I forget like the exact thing he said. It was like so small, and then he just disappeared.
Yeah. When we met Just Blaze for the first time, and he invited us to Baseline, and he was like, "Let's go hang out." When we met Miss Info for the first time,
She was playing Rock Band at pianos.
Yeah.
And with Horse from the Bravehearts.
Yes, yeah.
And like at that time, Miss Info sort of like kept us at an arm's length because, you know, she was on a certain level and we were just some guys from the internet. And then to sort of grow into being friends with her and being friends with all these people.
Yeah.
Like Eric fanned out the first time we met DJ Enough to like an uncomfortable degree. And Enough was like...
For you.
Well, no, but to Enough was just like, yo, like chill, like we're friends.
Yeah.
So but we, you know, when you talk about earnestness, like we had that earnestness where it was just like we were guys who idolized all these people.
And you want to know one of the first times that it really like clicked was when Bun B reached out to us and he wanted to do a video with us. And now when Bun sees something, and Bun is so ahead of the curve and Bun is very internet savvy, when he was a part of the video, it gave other people
license
sort of
to,
yeah.
I want to jump ahead without skipping so much, but I think, you know, you guys have obviously like sort of 3 years deep into that, you began branching off into other things, and now you've done this podcast for 200 episodes, right?
Crazy.
And you have a book coming out. And
Yeah.
there's a whole right. So, and I want to talk a little bit about maybe some things that happened along the way in detail, but I also think a lot of your fans know about some of those accomplishments. So I think maybe just to start, like, what at this point in your career, what do you consider yourselves? Is the podcast the anchoring thing? And that's, you know, you consider yourselves great hosts? Are you on-air talent? Are you writer? Like, what? Yeah.
At this point, there's so many different things, but obviously the podcast is the leading thing. And it's funny because it's like, it's something that we did not want to do. Our agent, after we had sold a TV show, was like, well, the TV show is the process is going to take a while. But if you want to keep your name out there, maybe you should do this podcast. And we were like, all right, well, we did a podcast in 2010. And we didn't think that there was like an audience there. And, you know,
who wants to hear these, you know, nasally voices all the time? And you know what? We call ourselves hip-hop sketch comedians still. Sketches is not what we do every day, not what we do every week.
Or haven't done for years.
Yeah, but when we have to, we can. Like, we wrote something that Wale hit us up like a couple years ago when he was doing that Seinfeld thing, and he's like, can you guys write me a sketch real quick for me and Jerry? And we're like, we sure can.
Yeah.
And we've done some other, you know, writing bits here and there. But we do refer to ourselves as hip-hop sketch comedians because it's such an easy
conversation starter.
It is.
Like, it's for whenever I'm in a party and people are like, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm a hip-hop sketch comedian. People have a million questions.
Yeah, it's
as
great.
Opposed to like, hey, I'm a podcaster or I'm a rapper or something. And it's like, well, everybody's a podcaster or a rapper.
Right. I want to be very honest in that, and we didn't plan on switching all these focuses throughout the years, but it was smart on our part because we never wanted to stay too late at the party. If we did, we would have been those guys who do sketches forever. And it's like, that's old. And we never wanted to be old. You know, we're fresh, we're young because we do all these different things.
I mean, do the auto-tune the news guys still auto-tune the news?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But they're not being interviewed today by Naomi Zeichner.
No, that is very true.
And you guys, right, there was a couple false starts with TV. I mean, talking about being too late at the party, like where is TV just in general, right?
Yeah.
I think people are really struggling to understand what people want to watch on TV or even what people want to watch on computers anymore.
Yeah.
You know, what were some of those maybe false starts or those disappointments that, like, you know, how did you feel about them now? And was there anything that at the time was like really felt like, oh, the career, like our careers are fucked?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think like we were friendly with Nick Cannon very early on for us, probably like 2012 or something, maybe even earlier. Yeah. And Nick's had sort of like taken us under his wing. He was taking us into MTV2 meetings. He wanted us to be on Wild 'N Out. And I think that when those things didn't happen, I think that there definitely was disappointment. I think that there definitely was not like so much where it was just like, oh, like this is what I really wanted to do in life, but I think that it was this sort of momentum that we were sort of looking for, you know, because we had probably like our 2008 or something, that early we were in Vibe and they called our stuff better than anything on TV. So like, I think that for us, it was always like, okay, once we got a manager, we were like, now the next move is to get on TV. And so there was this very, focused path to we're going to get on TV.
Well, yeah, I think, too, there's a very sort of, we don't work in a building. We're not professionals in, that we have a degree that, allows us to do something. We are self-made. We are self-contained. I think there's a lot of answering that you feel you need to do to your family, to your friends, to the greater sort of circles that you run in. And a lot of times that pressure can get to you. So it's like, oh, we probably need to get a manager, or we probably need to get an agent, or we probably need to get a TV show at this point. It's not how do you do this very well, or maybe you sell to Complex. That's a discussion that we had to have, and we decided not to sell to Complex. They came to us and said, hey, what if you guys made your site into a full-time 24/7 operation where you're not just making sketch videos, but you're blogging and you're reporting on this and you're making lists. And we're like, well, yeah, but we don't want to do that. And we sacrificed money for that. We sacrificed money on a lot of fronts. We thought Vibe was going to give us a lot of money. We walked into Vibe and they were like, we're going to give you X amount of money, and we would have been great. And we could have moved out on our own, and we could have had this career and had a lot of less awkward conversations of what hip-hop sketch comedy is. We thought the MTV thing was going to be the one. But a lot of the times it's not, and you have to be so sure of who you are and not care what other people have to say and know that your work is good. And I think that we've shown that our work is good in a lot of different ways. I'm sure a lot of people were like, they're making a podcast, or they're making music, or they're going with MTV, or they're doing this or that. And you know what? There were times when I wish I had a lot of money. There are a lot of times I wish that I could go on vacation. I'm going on my first vacation in a decade at the end of this month.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
There were a lot of sacrifices that we made to make this career. It's not perfect. We've had our ups and downs, but if you pull back and you look at it, we started from nothing and we've made it to something. And I think that a lot of the time it's more than just the money. We look to 2 Chainz. I say this a lot, and I apologize to anybody who hears this all the time, but it's true. He made it late in rapper life on his terms.
Right.
And that's what I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable knowing that, we're on the cusp of something. We put in this work, and I'm so proud of what we've done and done ourselves, because a lot of people have not done that. And, we don't necessarily measure ourselves against anyone, but I know that we've put in the work, and I stand by all of our work. So
I know, I've found it very impressive, sort of what you guys say, that you have been very present in so many people's life moments, right? And I do think people forget that, rappers are humans too. To go to somebody's show really does often mean something to them. To make a real relationship means something to people. And I guess, though, now it's funny to call sort of the early 30s late life, but in some ways, right, we all work with 17-year-olds every day.
Yeah.
And and a lot of what this, I think also, right, the work of sort of being present for people has expanded in this crazy way. It's not just going to somebody's show, it's responding to every comment or looking at every story, right? That social world that wraps around everybody's lives is very enveloping right now. And I think, for you guys, are you finding it any more difficult, or have you ever found it difficult to kind of be so present for people all the time and be on for people? Because I do think that's been a huge part of your work, right? And your work and life have sort of blended in that way. Yeah,
I think that it's just naturally within us to be very supportive of people. And especially I remember a very clear moment was when our father passed away and people reached out for that. And I remember after that, I was like, people made me feel good in that moment, and I should make people feel good in all capacities. And so I think that it's been sort of a tougher year for me in terms of that, just because I feel like I'm not trying to sound bitter, I'm not trying to sound anything, but it is this thing where I think that we're very supportive of a lot of people, and I don't feel the same energy gets put back on us.
Right. And we've had a lot of those discussions between ourselves, and I think that the way that I look at it is that I want to keep putting good energy out there. I know that this business has treated us very well, and the people in it deserve that from us.
Yeah.
And so we go to celebrations and we go to funerals. I went to someone we're friendly with. Her father passed away unexpectedly, and I went to the funeral, and I didn't know the man, but I wanted to support someone who we're friendly with because you're there in good times and in bad. And I know that meant a lot to her, and hopefully that helps build her up. And I hope that the good energy is returned somewhere in this crazy universe of ours. I think the difficult thing is being so omnipresent that you get lost. I'm so afraid of going to every event and having people look at us like wallpaper and be like, well, oh yeah, no, of course they're here. Because there's something about, we went to London and we did a show with DJ Semtex, and people went crazy for that. And I think it's because, you're doing something out of the norm. You're not at SOBs, you're not at Highline, you're not at Best Buy Theater, whatever it's called, PlayStation or whatever it is. You're with Big Ben, right? Or you're in Cleveland for the Beyonce and Jay-Z tour. I think there's something about like getting out further than what people expect from you, and part of that is, so it's a difficult balance. You want to be at every event and you want to go say hi to your friends, but at the same time you have to sort of like level up to sort of like get beyond these four walls.
I think both of you have also, or Jeff, like I think specifically something that you wrote a couple years ago about your father, like I found very touching and just found it very impressive the way that you were able to express yourself, and also just like clearly how much like being a good human matters to you, right? And celebrating things that are good. Like it sounds simple and corny when I say it, but I really do think that it's like something that many of us learn over the course of our lives, and it seems like something that you guys sort of came to understand maybe at an earlier point in your life and has sort of guided you in a lot of ways. And I think I just like wanted to sort of pause and say, like, how did your father's death affect you? And also, like, what is that something maybe that you learned from him? Is that something you learned from your mother? Like, what was that sort of value of really kind of like caring about ultimately like how people treat each other first? And I think, Eric, it speaks to what you're saying about like just knowing your work matters is the most important thing, knowing that the work is good, right? Like knowing that you are good seems to really matter to both of you. And where do you think that comes from?
So our parents in 2008 or so, they love to travel. Our dad, actually earlier, our dad got laid off from those companies that he did so much for, right? And I remember at Dan and Jeff's high school graduation, Dad always had this mustache, and then he shaved the mustache and he dyed his hair to look younger and like really try to, put himself in a position so he could get a better job and or a job.
Well, it should be said like he got laid off like right when his pension was going to kick in.
Right. It was really tough, and what ended up happening was our parents sold the house that we grew up with as a chance to give Dad retirement and allow them to live and to travel and to enjoy themselves. And during those travels, so Dad never ended up getting a job again. Like happy retirement. They had money invested. They sold the house and got money off that. And through those travels, they ended up going to like, was it Maine or Canada?
They went to Nova Scotia, I want to say.
So they were in Canada, and they met these people, and they were very like-minded, a group of friends who had grown up with each other, who lived in North Carolina, and our parents were like, we love these people with the same, like, disposition and the same political beliefs, and, like, we all love pottery, and so eventually Mom and Dad were taking a walk at their house in White Plains. We had moved into the city. Our brother Dan was living in Cleveland, and our dad, it was almost like he was asking our mom to marry him again. He was like, what do you think if we buy property down in North Carolina and build a house down there? And she said yes. And they took this leap of faith, and they built that house. They bought an apartment in the city, about 30 blocks south from here. And then the economy took a downturn, and they could only afford one place. And so they decided to go all in on this place in North Carolina. So they finished building the house. and they moved down there, which was very emotional for us because, you know, our parents are out of our lives. Like 30 blocks can seem like a short space, but it's also a big space, and it was good enough. We got to drop in and visit them and know that they were here, and it was very emotional when they left. And they moved down to North Carolina, and within 9 months, our dad had been diagnosed with esophageal cancer, and
passed away 6 weeks later.
Yeah, so that was very, very tough. It was tough on us. It was tough on our mom, supremely tough. Our dad asked that mom wait until the housing market rebounded to sell the house. This was their dream house. They built it from the ground up, and you know, it was in the mountains. It was a half an hour from anything. You know, there's just wilderness around them, and it's not built for one person, right? So our mom moved down into a sort of like cabin across the street from her best friends down there, and her friends and the whole city, the whole town treated mom really, really well. And we did what we could from here and went down there and then moved her back up eventually when she was able to sell the house and get the rightful money for that. So our dad wasn't able to see what our career would eventually become, right? But what he really appreciated, as far as when we were still making the videos when he was around, was that, so our dad always loved the arts. He was always giving with the arts. He and mom would go to see ballets, and they would go see plays all the time. They would go see bluegrass music. They, you know, live in concert. They went and saw Bruce Springsteen, loved Bruce Springsteen. Like, they really, they both loved the arts. But dad grew up in a time when his parents were like, hey, you got to get into the sciences. Our grandfather worked for NASA. You know, he was like, you should do this. And our dad went to Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, sight unseen, went over there and
hated it.
Yeah, get like a physics degree, right?
Yeah.
But he took fine arts courses, like sort of like behind his parents' back, to sort of like go to museums and get all that, and really like appreciated that,
which he loved. And he and this group of guys who all took this art history class, they like joined up again like 30 years later and went to the same museum with the same art professor, and like they, you know, that was like his thing.
Yeah. And so I think that they both appreciated where we were coming from. They might not have understood the lyrics or the beats or certainly the business around it or anything, but what they saw was two brothers who loved each other and worked together so well, able to do this. This is before our brother Dan came back to New York City. Clearly we love him and work well with him too, and he would eventually live with us for a time. But specifically what we had to do together, they were so impressed by, and they were, you know, dad was very giving of his time, worked at a community college, and they would do these fundraisers for kids in Yonkers, you know, around Christmas time. We're Jews, but they would always be Santa hats and moving like all giant bikes and doing all these wrappings on Christmas Eve and all this stuff for kids who weren't as fortunate as like we got to be when we were growing up. And so I think that there was an appreciation of what we did to that point and what we could do. And I think the baseline was that, and mom and dad would talk about this a lot, I would learn like later on, is they loved who we became as young men. And that mattered more than whatever our job title was or whatever we would go on to do in life. And that is very satisfying. I know dad loved when we moved into the city. That was his big thing, because he's like, you know, the city meant so much to him when he came up here.
Yeah, and they also they hated Westchester.
but it's bittersweet, because I think to myself often, would we, if we didn't have that moment in our lives when we lost our dad, would we be the same people that we are today?
Absolutely not.
And it's crazy to think that, because I want dad in our lives. And it's like, what an effect he had both in life and in death. So it caused us to stop doing sketches for a while. It caused us to rethink things. And I think that everything we do is a nice tribute in one way or another to, you know, the job that he did in raising us.
Guys. who do you think you make your work for now? Like, who is the audience, right? I think so much of also what you guys have done in sort of having an independent business is to be able to have a direct line to that audience, that you guys really do work for them in a lot of ways. Who are they? Who do you think they are? Who do you want them to be?
I don't know. Yeah, I wish I had a better idea. I think that we have a dedicated fan base, and I think that we do it mostly for ourselves, to be honest.
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
I don't think that's a bad answer. I was thinking like of Steve Jobs when he was just like, I know what the people want, and not to say like we are Steve Jobs in any sense of the word, but what I'm saying is that, like, let's say for the podcast, when we book a guest, it's someone who we think is cool. Yeah.
Or who we think is...
Like, a lot of people might not know who Marcia St. Hubert is, but she means everything to us.
Everything.
And to all three of us. But, like, but certainly, like, the work that she does, the appreciation that she deserves, we're like, she needs to be on this platform. And we fought our great friend Marcia to get on this podcast forever. And when we could have gotten X rapper or
I think
producer.
There's a lot of people that we have turned down who have like hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, or like, millions of listens on various platforms. I think that we could have gotten certain guests that would not have been right for us. They would have been right for if you're trying to build, a platform. But I think that we're just trying to be authentic to ourselves.
And I'm very afraid of doing something like normal. I'm very afraid of doing something that's expected. I want to, I want to do something different. So last year when we did our show at Highline Ballroom and we brought everyone from Rockefeller together, that came from Jeff saying, well, okay, we could get one guest, and we've done one guest before, but what if we went crazy and got 10? And that turned into the Rockefeller thing. Well, yeah, but how do you top that now? Well, everyone's like, you guys should go get Rough Riders together. You guys should get Bad Boy together. But we're doing this thing with the Locks where we're watching a movie with the audience. And that's as different as it possibly could be. But we're very sure of the product because we're very sure of ourselves.
And, I think something also that you guys have always been a bit, maybe just by virtue of being young and internet connected and kind of whatever, like on the cutting edge a little, or maybe just by virtue of necessity and being grassroots. But, as media makers, and I think about this a lot, like, and the state of media is pretty grim at the moment. Like, what are some of the ways that you guys are, where do the opportunities feel like they lie, right? Like, is Instagram where we should all have all of our energy? Is podcasting the future? Like,
right.
It's funny. It's this thing where every few years you'll be like, oh, you want to know what? Like, everybody just craves those real connections. And so you have to get live experiences. Mm-hmm. And so I think that we're finding a lot of opportunities in live experiences. I think that a lot of people want us to come to their towns and to, send them merch and stuff. And then it's also like, well, but you can also do all this stuff online. And so, like, you build up organic things online as well. I think that it's, for us, because when we had agents in, like, a million different, like, we had zillions of agents.
All the sectors, yeah.
Like, so people would be like, oh, who's your agent at WME? And we'd be like, name off like 30 different people. And it's this thing where there's a lot of opportunities for us. I don't know about everybody. I don't know if everybody is getting into,
Yeah. Speaking about like live experiences, and this is something sort of 10 years old, which is that, like I said, we were those guys who would download every song off the internet. We downloaded Freeway's album. And by the way, shouts to Freeway, who we love in real life, right? I hope that we've made it up to him since then. But we wanted to give something that you couldn't necessarily just download for free. We want those experiences. And we've had some meetups. We did a meetup in Los Angeles where people from all over came. We were just like, all right, Union Station, come meet us there. And people came and wanted us to sign things, just wanted to hear their stories, wanted to hear our story, wanted to hear us make jokes, wanted to take pictures. That's meaningful to us, right? That we can do hand to hand, and brands want to get involved in that. We're like, can we rent a bench and get like, Doritos to sponsor it?
Which, by the way, is still a great idea.
Yes, and the answer is yes. And that's something that we're really like looking forward to doing in addition to live podcasts, live rap shows, live traditional things. Like we want to sort of like work ourselves in, because at the end of the day, when you're like, who are we? Are we hip hop sketch comedians? Are we podcasts or whatever? People just like what we do. We create something. That's why people are buying, a notebook that we put together. That's why people are interested in a real like book about our journey. That's why people are interested still in shows that we're going to do for television or music or whatever it is. We provide something. There's some good energy there. There's something that people like about us that we can give them, whether it's on a park bench or whether it's on your computer screen. So I think we're good, and that brands and media companies are now catching up to us.
And so again, sort of like when you give so much of yourselves and when you are kind of live and present to people all of the time, like, where's your life going when you come home, right? You guys have this amazing apartment. Mm-hmm. So many people have been welcome in this beautiful apartment. You've lived together for a really long time. Mm-hmm. I think your brother just bought an apartment and
he did.
Got married. Yeah.
No,
not okay. No. Sorry, Dan.
But congratulations, Dan.
Yeah.
But I think about in my own life, right?
Unless a mortgage is a marriage. Yeah.
Is it? I think it may be. I lived with somebody for about 10 years, and so now do not live with them, right? I feel like this year has been so interesting for me to kind of actually like really understand what the things are that I have relied on other people for, things that I can rely on for myself. You guys have clearly relied on each other for so much, right? And you are such a powerful duo in your work. Mm-hmm. Eric with like beating down the doors, Jeff very prepared and thorough. Like there's a magical combination there. Do you see a life where you don't live together, or like?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to end up like what was that documentary with the two sisters who lived together?
Grey Gardens.
Grey Gardens. We don't want to be that, right?
Don't put that out there.
We don't want to put that. Right? We don't want to do that. Yeah,
it's a very clean apartment, guys.
I want to be in a position where I can be like Dan, and get my own place and decorate it the way I want to, and enjoy that. That's this has been very enjoyable, and I wouldn't have traded the experience whatsoever. But there is a time and place, and I sort of want to grow and level up in that regard.
Yeah, I think that for me, there's a power in working and being around Eric, but there's also a power in, I'm a person who loves to be by himself. I'm a person who, and I know that I'm a very social person, but like I walk through the park like all the time, both of them, because we have both of them around. I have started running. I think that it's dope to be alone, and it's dope to figure things out and experience things on your own.
And we are individuals, and I'm glad that you brought up Jeff's writing, because Jeff was there's a very good time and very good work that stands up, and people still talk about his work on the Rihanna plane. So obviously we'll get recognized wherever we go. All around this country and this world, we've been recognized. Oh, it's the real, which is great, and I love that. It is amazing to me, if I'm on my own, how Jeff will get recognized more by himself than I will get recognized by myself.
Yeah, well,
it's the glasses.
I think it is the glasses.
I think it's the glasses. Yeah. It's also that I'm about a foot taller than everybody.
That is true. Yeah.
I have like a lot of signifiers. Yeah. I'm very tall. I'm very skinny. I've got glasses.
Glasses. Yeah.
Yeah.
What when you look at sort of the overall mission to date, like what's the next step, guys? Where.
Yeah. It's just to do cool work, right? Like I think that whatever the medium is sort of not the issue. Like it doesn't even matter. Mm-hmm. But I do think that there is something within us that, or at least with me, where it's like TV has always been the goal. Like I think that there was a something put in the air 10 years ago, and I want to complete that mission. Whether that's a streaming service, I don't think I want to be at MTV anymore for various reasons.
Yeah.
I think that we're putting in the work to take this to that level where like you're not just hearing our voices and you're not just seeing our work on like a piece of paper, but you're now being able to like see us on camera.
I love being able to do new things. I love being able to express myself in different creative ways and not be boxed into one thing or another. I know I didn't go to my high school reunion. Jeff went to his
and killed it, by the way.
But there is something about, and I'm not active on Facebook either, but there is something about knowing that I am consistently redefining what I want to do and enjoying the work that I do that is extremely satisfying. I love and am so proud of all the different ventures that we've done. I get such a kick out of being in the studio and creating. I get such a kick out of writing and sending a draft to Jeff and him kicking it back and going back and forth with that. We get the biggest high from an amazing conversation like right here. It's wild. And again, when all these opportunities come up, which we thought were so foreign years ago, to create merch, for people to buy merch, to be able to send book proposals and have them be like over the moon about it, or to sell a TV show. It's all like, it's satisfying, but it's not like we're done, right? And for you, as somebody who has, you left comforts of certain jobs and took chances on other ones, and that's always been impressive to us. I feel like you understand the fact that like, we're not just one thing, and we know that our talents can work in lots of different things. That's what I think we're both excited about doing, like moving forward. And like, I don't know if we're wrapping up or anything, and we can sit here all day, and that's totally cool. I just want to make sure that this is on the record. We're so flattered that you would come in and sit here, because I put out word. We're not journalists. We're not, great personalities, or I guess we're great personalities. We're not great, like, radio personalities or something like that. I think we're just good at what we do, and we're honest and we're authentic. I put out the word 2 months ago, something like that I really wish someone would interview us like we interview people. And when people were like, well, what does that mean? I think it's there's a certain level of care in there. When we had Tierra Whack up here, she said at the very end, she was like, I'm nervous. And we're like, why are you nervous? You're in our apartment.
Yeah. And she was like, because you guys care. And I think that it's dope to have somebody, talk to you and put that care into it.
Yeah. You are somebody who, your record is exemplary and your resume is outstanding. And it means the world to us that you would take the time to care, and there is something about that. And I'm so glad that we have this on the record. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, thank you. And seriously, congratulations.
Thank you.
On 200 episodes.
Bum, 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 bum.
I know, where are the noises? and on all that you've done. And thank you for caring about me and for our community. It is appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to this new episode of A Waste of Time with It's The Real. Jeff, if people have not heard enough from us, if people want to find out more about who we are, I'm Eric, you're Jeff. We are It's The Real. If people want to go get Rhyme Book, if people want to go get AKA t-shirts, if people want to go get tickets to our upcoming show on October 3rd at Highline Ballroom with the Locks called Two Jews and Two Black Dudes Review the Movies, where can they go?
You can always go to ItsTheReal.com, ItsTheReal.com. No apostrophes, no spaces, ItsTheReal.com today. Go to ItsTheReal.com/shop for merch.
Yes.
Go to ItsTheReal.com just in general. Mm-hmm. You can always find our podcast at SoundCloud.com/awasteoftime. You can also go on iTunes, search for A Waste of Time with It's The Real. I'm sure it's on Google Play and all other streaming platforms like Spotify. Just search for A Waste of Time with It's The Real. It's a sort of complicated name, and yet people still manage to find it, so you can too.
That's right.
I would also say you can listen to our music. It is on Spotify, it is on Apple Music, it is on SoundCloud, it is on all streaming platforms. YouTube.com/ItsTheReal. You can also go and listen to our Twitter if we read it to you. Go to Twitter.com/ItsTheReal. Go to Instagram @ItsTheReal. We're also on Facebook, but we don't really use it.
Nope.
And I'm on Fortnite at It's The Real.
How's that going?
Killing it.
Literally.
Yeah.
Jeff, as always, we like to shout out those who are so great to us, who appreciate us and spread the word about us. Who would you like to shout on episode 200?
I want to shout out everybody.
All right.
How's that?
That's pretty good.
Well, we've shouted out, I've shouted out 200 or so people. You've shouted out 200 or so people just throughout this process.
Mm-hmm.
And there's way more people out there. And there's a lot of people to shout out. We can start with the artists who have come up here, the DJs, the engineers, the writers, the comedians. You can start with the people on their teams, the people who have fallen asleep on the couch listening to our interviews, the people who buy t-shirts, the people who shout us out on Twitter and say like that they enjoyed the episode, the people who will recommend guests whenever we ask, the people who bring us guests. You know, I mean, like, there's just a lot of people that go into 200 episodes. It's not just, even though it's the two of us sitting in this room, there's a lot of people to thank. And so I want to thank everybody who's been a part of it. I want to thank everybody who is going to be a part of things moving forward.
Yes, very well said. I hope this doesn't take anything away from you saying that you want to thank everyone, but I want to thank a couple of specific people. One, I want to thank our brother Dan, who listens to every episode, who lived here for most of the episodes, and who is a huge supporter of us, and it means so much to us that he does support us the way he does. I want to shout out Greg Mayo, who is a huge supporter of us in that he's also our best friend and rocks with us and has rocked with us for the longest time.
And also was the engineer to our first podcast.
And engineered this very here podcast. So shout out to Greg, who also produces all of our music. If you like the intro and outro music, it's called Suns Out, Guns Out. It's by ItsTheReal and Freeway, produced by Greg Mayo. If you guys like his music, hit him up at Greg Mayo Music. I also want to thank somebody who we don't hear from a lot these days, but he really meant a lot to us at the beginning of our career and through most of our career. And he deserves to be mentioned for a lot of people's success, certainly ours. SK, who is the proprietor of NahRight, who was the brains behind NahRight, who helped so many artists get traction and promote themselves and be seen by people that they never even imagined. And two of those artists are sitting at microphones right now. That's Jeff and myself. And the fact that SK posted our videos, that he supported us, that he defended us sometimes when nasty NahRight commenters could be at their nastiest, that SK would hear us out, that he would listen to our dreams and support on a platform that at the time we couldn't even fathom is so important to our career arc, and we just can't say thank you enough to a guy who has done so much. So shout out to SK.
Shout out to SK.
And like Jeff said, thanks to all you guys. It really means a lot that you've rocked with us from episodes 1 all the way to 200, and we look forward to 200 more. As always, guys, not for real, for real.
Sure.
We'll see you guys next week.